Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Google Hangout on air. We call it Poolside with Sea Otter Pup 681. We're at the Shed Aquarium. I'm Bill Kurtis, and today I'm hanging out with Lana Wanogase, the senior trainer here at Shed Aquarium in Chicago, and from Monterey Bay Aquarium in California, Dr. Mike Murray, Director of Veterinary Services, and Carl Mayer, Animal Care Coordinator of the Sea Otter Program. We are also joined by the cutest new addition to the Shed family. I say it's the cutest living animal alive today. It is Sea Otter 681, live from behind the scenes at the Regenstein Sea Otter Nursery here in Shed Aquarium. Now, the pup is not yet available for public viewing, so the viewers today are going to get a live sneak peek. Stay tuned for some great footage up close and personal. Let's hear more about Pup 681. Carl, let's go all the way out to California, and could you, I understand that the story begins at Coastways Beach. How did Monterey Bay Aquarium get involved?
We have a multifaceted sea otter program out here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and one of the aspects of that program is that we direct stranding response to fighting sea otters in California. And we're also involved in the treatment and care of those stranded otters, both going through research programs with the intent to release them back to the wild, as well as animals that ultimately will be transferred to some of our colleague institutions in captive home. In the case of 681, she's stranded in the evening on a rocky stretch of coastline north of Santa Cruz. This was on September 30th. She was vocalizing. The person that found her reported it to the Marine Mammal Center, who then passed on the call to us. At that point in time, it was after dark and the location was fairly remote, so we realized that it really would, from a human safety standpoint, not necessarily be a good idea to send anybody out at that time, but also from the pup standpoint, the fact that she was vocal meant that there was a chance that she could be reunited with mom at that stranding location. So we decided to leave her overnight and then to go up and check for her in the morning. That morning, one of our colleagues from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife in Santa Cruz went up and did locate the pup in the same location. And we wound up bringing her back down to Monterey Bay Aquarium, and by the time we arrived, it was about 12:30 in the afternoon on October 1st.
It sounds pretty traumatic. Dr. Mike, what was the condition when you got her in?
Well, you know, these pups, when they come to the beach, particularly as young as 681 was, they're typically cold. Their blood glucose levels may be rather low. Depending upon how long they've been separated, they may have lost a great deal of body condition. They may actually be dehydrated if they haven't been eating. And then they're obviously quite frightened. They don't understand what's going on. In their eyes, humans are just a different form of a predator. So, you have to look at all of that. With a pup as young as 681, we also worry about her immune status. Very young, probably didn't get a lot of that first antibody-rich milk from mom. So there's a whole series of balls that were lined up to fall against her had Carl and his team not been able to step on it and really conducive to stuff even well.
Could it have been released back into the wild?
So what we've learned after 30 years of raising and releasing sea otter pups is that humans really do not make very good proxies for sea otter mothers. It's not that we can't provide adequate care for the pups. It's that sea otters have a very long and very intensive dependency period, and when you put a human into that maternal role, the sea otter pup winds up imprinting on the human caregiver, and then when you try to release it to the wild, you wind up with an animal that's likely to interact with people, either kayakers or divers or surfers or whatever, and ultimately winds up having to be brought back into captivity. So about 15 years ago, we started experimenting with using our adult female sea otter exhibit animals as surrogate mothers, and essentially giving the sea otter pup, an actual sea otter mother, to rear it. And we found that this is remarkably successful. The pups that are reared and released using this method wind up surviving and reproducing at rates that are essentially comparable to their wild-reared counterparts. The main issue, though, is that we have a very limited number of surrogates that can function at any one time in that role. And this case with 681 was a case of essentially the inn being full, that we already had pups that were occupied behind the scenes with surrogate mothers. And so really we did not have the option of rearing it for release. And so fortunately, Shed in this situation stepped up and was willing to take this pup on and give it a permanent home.
It's not automatic, though, is it? I witnessed a baby elephant in Uganda. They tried to push it out and found a mother elephant, but already with a couple. They said, well, that's perfect. But once the baby got out there, very close to getting milk, the mother swatted it away with her trunk, would not accept it. It was kind of nature's way of saying, I've got only enough for my kids. I can't take you anymore. So I congratulate you on any that are accepted into the wild. Why Shed? Why did you send her here?
Well, we've had a relationship with Shed that goes back many years, and really at this point in time, there's a very limited number of facilities in the United States that are currently keeping sea otters as part of their collection, and Shed being one of those that has been involved for quite a long period of time. We've worked with their staff and their trainers, and we know that they have experience rearing sea otter pups. Really, the fact that they actually, the biggest decision was whether they had space, and because we knew that this would be a great home for this otter, and so the fact that they did have a spot available really was a great outcome.
Yes, they took several in during the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Mike and Carl, why don't we go down Poolside for one caregiver? How is she doing?
She's doing great. As you can see, she's grooming herself, doing some playing back here in her nursery area. And we were able to have Jason Jones, who's actually one of the trainers that went out and helped her rehabilitate along with the staff along at Monterey Bay Aquarium and along with Dr. Lisa Naples 2 weeks ago.
I was down there a moment ago. She was floating on her back, playing with a little basketball, but she appeared to really love the kelp. It's artificial kelp, of course, but seemed to just be a nice plaything. Has she taken to it?
She really does love the kelp. It simulates the kelp out in the wild. It's actually really durable car wash strips, and she likes to wrap in them, chew on them a little bit, just like she would out in the wild.
How long will she be in this quarantine area? And then will she be introduced to other sea otters?
She has to reach many milestones before she can be introduced to other areas and to the other sea otters in our collection. She does need to grow larger so that she can be an appropriate playmate to our other otters. She also is still eating formula from a bottle as well as having solid feed several times a day. So her feed schedule needs to be more similar to the adult otters as well as the volume of food that she's eating so that she can be ended at the same time as those otters.
Now, she doesn't have a natural mother to take milk, so what do you put in as nutrients into the hand-fed milk?
So the formula is clam mixed with water and other nutrients and supplements that she needs for her growth and development. And then we also are feeding her small solid pieces of seafood that she'll usually eat either to the mouth or use her paw and bring it to the mouth at this point. She still has to develop her skills of, after we place it on her chest, her moving it up to her mouth on her.
Is she sleeping now?
She's playing with the ball right now, looking around, enjoying seeing Jason and the other toys around in her nursery.
There is a tighter shot. How many are on the team that I presume gives her daycare and night care at the same time? 24 hours?
She is on 24-hour care. There are about 6 to 8 trainers that work with her, feeding her, grooming her, because we have to provide all of the care that her mother would normally provide. So even though she grooms a little bit on her own, we still help teach her how to groom all those hard-to-reach areas, and then also she'll have to learn foraging skills as well, because her coat is very thick, and that's what they need to keep warm in their environment. So we definitely want her to learn those grooming skills very quickly.
Dr. Murray, tell us a little bit about the California state program, the Endangered Species Act, that goes back to 1977. Are these animals really endangered?
They're not classified as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. They're actually one step below that, which is threatened. And they've been threatened for quite a while. A lot of activities by a lot of folks here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, as well as some of our collaborators, are trying to get a handle on why the range expansion has been slow, why the numbers haven't grown as quickly as we would like them to, and then trying to affect change so that we can allow this very, very important component of this nearshore, ocean system to go back up to numbers where we think that it is logically predicted and really they're able to do their job out in the wild.
Isn't one of their favorite foods abalone, and weren't they in decline for a while?
Well, they are pretty broad in the number of prey species they reflect. Certainly abalone is on that list, but they eat a whole series of invertebrates, or those animals without backbones, who live on the bottom of the ocean. And we found in California that actually they do tend to form sort of species villages. There are groups of animals that eat primarily abalone, others eat primarily crabs, others tend to eat clams and urchins, and others eat these really small scales. Each one has advantages and risks associated with it. So in California, they're not this broad menu of food items. They tend to be pretty narrow feeding zones.
How close are we to see them being listed as an endangered species, or kind of on the, do we have a growth in the population of sea otters there on the California coast, or are they threatened?
Well, they truly are threatened. The population is restricted to a relatively narrow part of the California coastline. One of the problems that we have with the population is if you're a sea otter, unless you can touch the bottom, you cannot feed. California sea otters do not eat fish that put stuff off the bottom and so they are very limited in how far west they can survive. The population can occur in 2 locations. It's the north end of the range and it's the south end of the range. So that puts us in a bit of a predicament.
Well, I hear her, and I think she wants to be interviewed, but I can't get the microphone in there, so she's going to have to be content. Carl, I spent some time with Ken Norris, a great friend of the aquarium, of course, and he used to describe dolphins in his great research as ambassadors of their species for the rest of us. Would you apply that also to sea otters?
Yes, absolutely. I think, as Dr. Murray was describing, this species is threatened out here along the California coastline, and there's a lot of work and a lot of community and input going in to address what's going on with the population. But the animals that are on public display really are coming through our stranding program, and they have unique stories to tell. And I think a lot of the stories about animals that wind up in captivity and on public display kind of mirror some of the threats that are facing the sea otter population in the wild. And so from that standpoint, they really provide a great way to get the message that Dr. Murray was talking about out to the general public.
And, well, I can't think of a better ambassador than to sort of have us adopt somebody like S681. And incidentally, that's not going to be the permanent name. There will be a formal naming ceremony and process in cooperation with Good Morning America too. So everyone all over the world is going to have a chance. But ultimately, we're going to have to choose one name. That's the kind of ambassador that really works. In this Google chat room here, why sometimes you're cutting out, at least on my speakers, so I apologize if I miss some of your comments. Lana, let's go back to you. Are we coming up to feeding time here?
She won't eat for a little while yet, but she is getting groomed right now by Jason. So usually after she gets out of the water, we'll do a quick towel dry off, and then we might do some more fine grooming as we need to.
Well, in the wild, they are supposed to eat about 30% of their daily weight. Seems like their feeding time is about any time. What's the equivalent in hamburgers?
Yes, so if we were to eat 30% of our body weight, we would eat about 30 whole hamburgers. So it's a lot of food, but they expend a lot of energy doing grooming, foraging, all of those other activities. So they really do need to eat a lot of calories to make up for that expenditure of energy.
Well, I'm afraid I'm a little too close in that diet in that respect. Carl, I spoke a moment ago about naming 681. You don't give names, do you, at Monterey Bay?
No, the animals that are going to be either released back into the wild or transferred to another facility as a permanent home, we don't name those individuals. That 681 represents essentially an accession number. She's the 681st sea otter that was admitted to the Monterey Bay Aquarium since 1984 as part of our stranding program. But we want to let Shed and their team name 681 however they see fit.
Well, Lana, we do name the animals here. What's the process going to be so people can participate?
So we're still figuring out the exact process of how we're going to be naming this pup, but we definitely want to have a name that tells a story from where she came from. So just like all the other animals in our collection, we try to link that name to where they come from out in the wild.
Southern California, then.
Yes.
When will we be able to see her here at Shed?
So she still has a lot of growing up to do, so we probably won't put her on exhibit to the public until next spring in 2015.
That's a long time. I wish it were sooner. Carl, now, it's my understanding that 681 came into your possession, and it must have been very small, about what? This long?
Sorry, I lost the last part of that. So when we brought 681 in, she weighed about 1 kilo, which is actually very small even for a neonate sea otter pup. Part of that probably reflected the fact that she had been separated from mom for at least 16 hours by the time she arrived at the aquarium. So a little bit of that was, she was probably a little bit undersized just because of that duration of time and the weight loss as a result of that. But nevertheless, she really is one of the smallest sea otter pups that we've successfully managed to treat and to have survive.
Yeah. Lana, how long have we had it, and how big is she now?
We've had her for 3 weeks, and she's around 8 pounds, give or take a little bit.
Wow. So she's growing fast. And
She is.
how big will she be at maturity?
Female sea otters can get up to around 50 pounds, so she definitely has a lot more growing up to do.
We have about 10 minutes left in our chat. I'd like to ask some questions that have been sent in from our Google Plus audience. And the first one, Carl, is for you. They'd like to know, how long do otters live?
So in the wild, we would consider sea otters that are over 10 years old to be kind of into an old age category. The females probably would live a little bit longer than the males, so maybe up to somewhere around 15 to 18 years would be a very long life for a wild southern sea otter. The males, I think, would probably be fairly lucky to make it to 10 years. We certainly have had several tagged animals that we know of that have been older than that. In captivity, the lifespan is definitely going to be longer. So among southern sea otters, there is currently a 21-year-old male that is surviving right now.
Wow. Lana, another fan from Facebook, has 6'8" here at Shed yet.
Pardon?
Has 681 met the other otters here at Shed yet?
Not yet. So she has a lot more growing up to do. She needs to get a lot larger. She needs to be weaned off her formula and her bottle and eating about the same amount of solids as an adult before she can go and interact with them.
That'll be a day. Let's have another chat when we can actually watch. Dr. Murray, another question. What is the bond between baby otters and humans?
So the bond between the otters and the humans, they recognize pretty quickly on who the caretaker is. They are very motivated. In the case of the pup, I believe there really is a great deal of comfort that is associated with having the presence of the folks that take care of the animal. There really is a great deal of emotional connection there, if you will. In the wild, we're not looked at the same way. We're a threat to them in many ways. So the nice thing about the animals that we are able to care for on a day-to-day basis, we are able to develop a bond. Our visitors, very importantly, form very, very powerful bonds with these animals through the acrylic of the exhibit. And by developing that bond, it's really nice to see how we motivate folks here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium and at the Pet Aquarium to take action on behalf of sea otters as well as the health of the ocean in general.
Maybe that's why they're so appealing, eh, Carl? They seem to like us. Not only are they really pretty and cute, but they just seem to be an extension of our family.
Yeah, I think so it is very easy to kind of make a connection with the individual animals that you're working with, and I think part of my job and the job of my team is to sort of try to distance ourselves a little bit from that, because a lot of the animals that we're working with, ultimately the goal is to put them back out into the wild, and we kind of need to resist to some extent becoming too attached, just because of that emotional, the emotional roller coaster. There's certainly no guarantee when you put an animal back out into the wild that it's going to survive.
How do they swim? Another question.
They swim using their webbed rear flippers. They're very well adapted to be able to use those powerful flippers to make their way down and dive deep into the water.
Where does the power come from, that kind of thing?
Pardon?
Where does the power come from? I've seen them using their tail a lot.
They use their tail a little bit, but the main power comes from their rear flippers.
Carl, what's the evolutionary chain of evidence, if you will, that goes back? What are they related to?
Sea otters are in the mustelid family, which they share common ancestors with weasels, badgers, ferrets. They're the most recently evolved marine mammal, so they're the last to evolve the ability to live full time in the marine environment, which means that they retain probably more terrestrial characteristics than any of the other marine mammal species. Part of the impetus for that evolutionary jump from a mostly terrestrial life to a marine life is most likely the abundance of prey in the North Pacific. It's sea otters, because of their high metabolism and their lack of blubber, are completely dependent on having really abundant resources in order to fuel that engine. And certainly the North Pacific coastal ecosystem is one of the richest. The kelp forest ecosystem is one of the richest anywhere in the world in terms of the potential calories available. And so I think roughly 5 million years or so ago, when probably some sort of river otter-like animal started completely occupying the marine environment, those were probably the drivers.
Lana, do you want to share some fun facts for our classrooms watching about sea otters?
Sea otters, they are one of the few species that use tools. So sometimes they might use a rock that they'll bang their shellfish against to open it up, or they might use shellfish on shellfish to open it up and move that way. They also have a flap of skin under their arm, we call their pocket, and they are able to really pack it full of food when they go down to the bottom and forage. Then they'll come up, pull it out, and have a wonderful experience.
We know that 681 is found there in the Monterey Bay area, but not sea otters, but otters are also found in rivers, river otters. I was filming a documentary in Yosemite above the falls, and there was a wonderful family frolicking in the very cold waters of Yosemite River, Yellowstone River, which was marvelous. They're also found in the Amazon. Are they spread all over the world, Carl?
Yes, there are otters all over the world. Sea otters specifically are unique to the North Pacific. There is a marine otter down in Chile, although that I think is a little bit more of a terrestrial / marine species. But yes, there certainly are otters on the European continent as well as the Asian continent. So yeah.
Yeah, they are great. Giant sea otters, I've always wanted to go down and see them. Not sea otters, but giant river otters in the Amazon. Now, they can bite, so they can be very rough. Yeah. Dr. Murray, how can we support programs such as the one there at Monterey Bay Aquarium and here at the Shed?
Coming to visit us in Monterey or to go into Shed Aquarium in Chicago on the lakeshore is one step that folks that are in the area should take advantage of. Going to our website, going to Shed's website, there are opportunities to provide some financial support that are present there. And then I think very importantly, just the fact that folks are interested enough to learn more about sea otters and the ocean, and then take what they learn and apply it to their day-to-day life, share it with their friends, their neighbors, and get everybody inspired to help us take care of not only sea otters, but the ocean in general.
Carl, any new ideas coming our way?
Well, ourselves and our research colleagues are really, the things we're learning about the southern sea otter population are expanding really rapidly. Within our own program here, I talked a little bit about our surrogate rearing program. We're in the early stages of trying to look at, now that we've established that the southern sea otters that we're rearing through our surrogacy program are surviving and reproducing at comparable levels to their wild-reared counterparts, we kind of want to take that knowledge and now begin to use those individuals potentially as proxies for their wild counterparts in studies looking at various aspects of health, potentially looking at aspects of releasing in the peripheries of the range to try to see if we can get animals to survive in offshore environments. We're working with our colleagues at UC Santa Cruz on studies that are looking at the energetics of being a sea otter mom, essentially the energetics of pregnancy and then subsequently of lactation after giving birth. So there's quite a bit. You know, we're between Dr. Murray and a variety of our research colleagues, everything out here is very proactive in terms of the things we're trying to learn about this really fascinating species.
More the merrier. Thank you all very much for being with us. Dr. Mike Murray, Director of Veterinary Services there at Monterey Bay Aquarium, and Carl Bayer, Animal Care Coordinator of the Sea Otter program there. And here, Lana Wanugase, a Senior Trainer here at Shed Aquarium. And, of course, the star, Sea Otter Pup 681. We'll be checking in with you. I'm Bill Kurtis, a Sea Otter fan, and for today's chat. A very, very good night.